One evening as the sun went down and the jungle fire was burning, down the track came a hobo hiking and he said, "Boys, I'm not turning. I'm headed for a land that's far away besides the crystal fountains, so come with me. We'll go and see the Big Rock Candy Mountains. In the Big Rock Candy Mountains, there's a land that's bare and bright, where the handouts grow on bushes and you sleep out every night. Where the boxcars are all empty and the sun shines every day, and the birds and the bees and the cigarette trees. The lemonade springs with the bluebird springs in the Big Rock Candy Mountains."
Welcome to Musical Shenanigans. Here are your hosts. Here's Corey, Dave, and Scott. And
there ain't no short-handed shovels, no axes, picks, or saws. I'm going to stay where the bungholes play, and we're going to pry open your jaws.
Oh, okay.
Welcome back, everyone. This is Corey.
And this is Dave.
And this is Scott.
Praise Satan.
Right, yes. Yes. Praise Satan.
Okay, so when we last left you, Scott told you that this week's show is going to be a little different than what you normally get from us.
I don't remember that.
Well, you did. You just haven't heard it yet because, well, someone hasn't edited and released the last show.
Slacker.
Yeah. Anyway, here's the deal. If you've been listening for a while, you know the drill. We took 128 randomly selected albums from Rolling Stone's top 500 greatest albums of all time list and put them into a big playoff bracket. Then we pitted them against one another randomly. There's three of us, so one person defends album A, the other defends album B, and the third makes the final call, and the album moves on. So we're still in the first round of our bracket, and so far we've had 32 of those matchups, which means we've hit the halfway point of round one. Yay! Okay.
Yay.
Now, here's a dilemma. We didn't always do it this way.
Back when this podcast first started, we just talked. There was no bracket, there was no matchups, there was no Satan. Hell, Dave wasn't even episode 1 at all.
Yeah, and that thing sounds really bad too. In fact, you can skip the first one. I think I leave it online just to remind me of what not to do.
Yeah, I actually did go back and listen to it, and I didn't miss much. I mean, you guys covered 3 albums in 12 minutes, and that includes the time you spent on a fake commercial for a non-existent Cajun restaurant. That's some real in-depth analysis, guys.
But, you know, but way back then, long ago, we were still talking about albums from the Rolling Stone Top 500. But that's it. We were just talking about them. We didn't really give them a listen. Oh, well, no, we did give them a listen, yeah. And then we talk about them, and we just talked. But we didn't, agree or disagree on anything about them.
We didn't go into, real depth. We just talked about them.
Yeah,
right.
So anyway, we got about 6 episodes in, and suddenly it dawned on us to actually pit these albums against one another. And so over the course of those 6 episodes, we covered 65 different albums, but it wasn't until that point that it finally dawned on us that maybe we should actually have the albums compete.
Right. So here's the problem. We some of these albums are really good, and they deserve to go toe-to-toe with other albums on the list. On the other hand, we already talked about them, and we really weren't sure that any of our listeners really wanted to hear us go on again about them. After debating this for a little while, we think we have a solution.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Wildcard round!
That's right. We're going to work 64 of those original 65 back into our overall competition. Now, why only 64? It's a math thing. Trust me, you don't want to hear us explain it, but it's going to be 64 of those 65, but they're going to have to earn it. And we need to do this without repeating ourselves.
They're going to have to earn it the hard way.
Yeah, that's what she said. Anyway, here's how this is going to work. We've created a separate little mini bracket of those 64 albums alone. So within that pool of 64, the matchups will still be randomly selected, but there's not going to be any formal opening statements. We're not going to have extended discussions of fun little facts, none of that. If you really want to hear our extended thoughts, we'll point you back to which episode we discussed it, and you're more than welcome to go back and listen if you choose. But like Corey said, you might want to skip the first one. Anyway, one of us will tell you a little bit about the albums. We'll debate their relative strengths and weaknesses for a few minutes, and then we vote. And once an album has 2 votes, it moves on. Simple enough.
Exactly. So we'll be doing this until that mini bracket gets whittled down to a final four. At that point, those final four albums will transfer over to our largest bracket with a chance to compete for the coveted Musical Shenanigans Greatest of All Time, because we said so, and if you don't like it, get your own damn podcast award, which obviously we're going to have to rename because that's not really going to fit on a trophy unless we make it like a really like big trophy that stands up like 3-4 feet tall, like an obelisk, or maybe just like a big dildo.
Just a reminder that this show has zero budget.
We think this is the best of both worlds. Rather than just putting 128 of Rolling Stone's choices to the test, we're now giving it a fair shot to 192 of those albums, nearly 40% of Rolling Stone's entire list. For our listeners who have been with us since the beginning, you don't have to hear us talk about those albums all over again. And if you're a more recent listener, you can always go back and download our original discussions. Again, you can skip the first one. That's a piece of shit. As a bonus, since the discussions will be much shorter, we think we can cover 8 rounds in each episode and work through this in fairly short order.
There's just one more thing. In a couple of our shows, we discuss an artist that had 5 or more albums in the top 500 and their respective albums. Some of them were glossed over. So we do reserve the right to delve deeper into an album that was just haphazardly mentioned to save time on those previous shows.
You said deeper.
We talked about this, Scott.
Yeah. All right. Let's do this. Dave, tell us about the first 2 wildcard competitors.
All right, in our first matchup, in this corner, Born in the USA wraps Bruce Springsteen's roadhouse rock sensibilities, trademark storytelling, and harsh critiques of an American dream gone wrong into an often misunderstood album that went on to become one of the biggest sellers of all time. In the other corner, Liz Phair's debut, Exile in Guyville, introduced the world to her lo-fi sound and no bullshit emotional honesty. While selling only modestly when originally released in 1993, it slowly gained recognition as a statement on how women are viewed both in society and in music. And if you want to hear our extended thoughts on these albums, you can check out our discussion of Born in the USA back on Season 1, Episode 5, or our discussion of Exile in Guyville on Season 1, Episode 2. All right, gentlemen, who wants to start?
I'll go. Let's go with the positives first. Born in the USA, 7 top 10 hit singles. This was Bruce Springsteen's biggest introduction into the world. You know, it was not only this album, it was, I think, combined with MTV. And I think it actually got people to go back and find his earlier catalog at this point. I mean, it was kind of a gateway to the earlier, some better work of his
Gateway
prior
Bruce.
to this.
Yeah.
No, I would agree with that.
Yeah, no, I think that's true. It the E Street Band too is one of the sort of the tightest groups to sort of ever come along. There's so many people on stage at once, and yet it's amazing. It's the more, generally, rule of thumb, the more people you add to band, the harder it is to get the sound right. But they've got so many people, and yet it's just so damn tight. And then to think that this album that they largely recorded live. I mean, that's how polished they had their sound down.
Bruce Springsteen is one, and I think we've mentioned this, is someone that does record live. He brings in the whole band. They're not doing their tracks individually. They are playing together. Maybe the vocals go on differently, but otherwise the whole band does play together, and it is their own distinctive sound. It is Bruce Springsteen and the E Street Band.
Yeah, absolutely.
And this was classic E Street lineup with Clarence Clemens.
True. Yeah, Clarence was great.
Steven Van Zandt, the whole 9 yards.
Max Weinberg.
Fuck yeah.
The other thing about this album is it's something that I think probably, Corey, to your point, people that hadn't really been turned on to Springsteen before was his lyric writing. And I kind of characterize this as subversive protest music in a lot of ways. Born in the USA, people often mistake it for a patriotic song, but the reality is it's very, very critical of the government. It's very, very critical of the way the government treated veterans. My Hometown is a song just all about just the economic decline in small towns throughout sort of the Reagan era. One of the comments I had down was subversive protest music because we've seen other acts try to write songs that are critical about the U.S. or critical of U.S. policies, and they end up getting banned from radio. Everybody probably remembers the Dixie Chicks in the Iraq War, for example. A lot of these lyrics, if people had sat down and paid attention, you could see some of these songs getting banned too, except A, they were misunderstood, and B, they were so damn catchy that you sort of had to play them if you were a radio programmer.
Yep.
Okay. It's also, so let's talk negative side of this. Let's talk the cons. The lyrics are, they are strong. They are that subversive, but they're not as strong as some of his earlier works.
Yeah, that's true. I think, for example, on Nebraska, some of the writing is a lot better in terms of the storytelling and the craftsmanship. I think it's also back to this point about people misunderstanding what the title track is about. You could question whether it really achieved its objective. If everybody misunderstands the point, did you really do what you set out to do?
Right.
Exactly. And I think you mentioned too, the Dancing in the Dark. He wrote that last minute because they needed one more song and they wanted a single.
Yeah.
And I mean, he threw that together, I believe, overnight.
Yeah, I think that's right. It was like towards the end, and the record company was pushing them to get something that they could play on the radio. And in fact, that's a criticism you hear about this album a lot, that a lot of this album seems like it was deliberately crafted just to make a lot of money. I don't know if Springsteen has always denied that. I don't know if it's true or not, but that is a criticism.
Okay, so let's move on to Exile and Guyville. Scott, you want to?
Liz Phair. Yeah, what's not to like? I mean, I love her voice, the way she writes, and it's honest. It's like kind of in your face, and she was one of those early female artists that came out pre Alanis Morissette type things, or was that around the same time? I guess it was.
This was around the same time because this was 93, so like this was
okay. Yeah. So
she's got Alanis by probably right. 2 years.
Yeah. So it's right in there. The whole what was that, Lilith Fair type thing. She was one of those artists, her, Sarah McLachlan, Alanis, all those chicks. And that's cool. They're it celebrated the whole, female songwriter. And these, and she's an honest songwriter too. She actually writes her own shit. It's not just canned and written for her.
Yeah. Yeah, at this point, definitely. I mean, I think some of her later stuff she started getting a little bit too overproduced towards the later part of her career. But yeah, at this point, this is like all raw and honest, and she's not holding anything back.
Right.
But even in the context of I think we talked about this a little bit at the time when we first discussed this, even in the context of sexuality. I mean, we talked about Prince being the first artist to kind of just come out and just flat out talk about sex in explicit terms. Right. Man, did Liz Phair take that thread and just run with it. There's a song on this album titled Fucking Run, and amazingly enough, that's not even the most explicit track on the album.
No.
The lyrics to Flower, for example, also like very, very sexually explicit. And this is Liz Phair saying, look, this is not just the domain of guys to talk explicitly about sex. Women have a sex life as well.
And that it's, why should one, why should half the human race be allowed to say these things and the other half not?
Exactly.
So,
all right. So let's look at the cons here. Some of these songs kind of went on a little too long. I mean, it was very experimental.
Self-indulgent.
Self-indulgent, I think, is actually the right word. So
it is. Yes.
There's this sense of she was so insistent on making her album and using her voice that she didn't have anybody sort of reining her in a little bit and saying, like,
right.
There's some really the fascinating thing to me. There's some really interesting sounds on this album. So, for example, there's like a piano opening on the song Canary. There's a guitar-bass combo on the song Shatter that is great. But it's a lot of times when she'll have these moments and they just kind of don't go anywhere. It's like I came up with a great idea, but then nobody helped me develop it, and I just said good enough. And
well, that's what a good producer does.
Right.
Yes. She needed a producer that would say, you know what, let's save this, or let's cut this, or let's trim this.
Yeah.
Or let's do something else here.
Or, hey, let's bring that piano up here and cut out the guitar, or do, it's weird little things like that sometimes make all the difference.
Yes.
Yeah, I think some of her later work where she did start taking a little bit more direction from producers, Whip Smart. There's an album, White Chocolate Space Egg, which is a great album. She got much better. This one, frankly, she had a little bit too much independence at a point in her career when she didn't really know how to use it.
Again, Rolling Stone picks one of her albums, and it's not one that everyone goes to. Yes, they know this one, but the other ones needed to have been considered and likely chose it instead of this one.
Well, we know about the crack pipe smoking individual that chose the albums from Rolling Stone. So that being said,
okay, it's time to vote now. And so that everybody's aware, I did roll so that we would be choosing in random, because it could turn out that the third vote will be the one that counts. Because once an artist gets 2 votes, we're done. We move on.
Yep.
Okay, so Scott, what's your vote?
I'm going with Born in the USA.
Okay, I'm second. I will also go with Born in the USA.
Well, that makes my vote kind of irrelevant, but for whatever it's worth, I was probably going in that direction too. So I think
In your face, Liz Phair!
Well, and also, it might
Whore!
be, well,
Sorry.
we're going to keep track of what everybody votes on, but that will make sense much, much later.
She is a whore! Oh, sorry.
Okay.
What do you think of this album that is a testament to feminist independence? She's a whore.
Musical Shenanigans! Do you like the music, lad?
Do you like podcasts?
Do you like expert analysis of music on podcasts?
Well, hey, 2 out of 3 ain't bad. And here it is, Musical Shenanigans. Find us on your favorite podcast platform. So far, we've bribed Apple, Amazon, and iHeart, to name a few.
And we have compromising pictures of the others.
Also, find us on Twitter at M_Shenanigan, because Kanye follows us. Okay. Maybe he doesn't. Okay, Dave, take us into the next match.
Alrighty, so matchup 2, we have David Bowie's The Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars, which tells the tale of an androgynous bisexual glam rocker sent from outer space to warn Earth of impending disaster. Meanwhile, just 2 years after the peace and love of Woodstock, the Rolling Stones' Let It Bleed, an album that was the beginning of the end for guitarist Brian Jones, is filled with dark, depressing moods of a generation living with an ongoing and seemingly hopeless war in Vietnam. And if you want to hear our extended discussion of these albums, you can check out Season 1, Episode 4 for Ziggy Stardust, or Season 1, Episode 5 for Let It Bleed.
Okay, let's go with Ziggy first.
Yeah.
Aye.
This is when David Bowie started creating protagonists and outside stories and characters to go with each of his albums. It was taking the concept album almost to a completely different level. It wasn't just the album, it was now David Bowie is Ziggy Stardust. This is who he's dressing up as. This is a whole persona. It's a genius idea. Incredible marketing, I would say. We learned later, because, David Bowie would reinvent himself. So you change the genre of the album, you change the character or the persona of the person doing the album.
Absolutely.
And just incredible marketing tool.
Yes. Agreed.
Not only that, the character also brought a sense of fashion with him. I think this is when we start to really see fashion get involved with rock and roll.
Fashion, art.
Yes, art, thank you.
That whole scene, really.
Well, and this is also Bowie kind of becoming the icon of outsiders, right? Embracing the androgyny, embracing his bisexuality, which later he would go on to deny that he was bisexual, but whatever. The point is, he was one of these artists that was like out there saying it's okay to be different. Like, you don't have to fit into society's expectations for you.
I will say Exhibit A, the Dancing in the Street video, and I'll leave it at that.
With Mick.
Oh, God.
Oh my God. And I just realized this is up against Let It Bleed too. So actually this is that's a very appropriate reference.
It is a good reference, but damn that.
Yeah, there's a great YouTube version of that, by the way, where they strip the vocals out, and they strip all the sound out, and it's just like all the grunts and groans of the two of them dancing around.
Wow. Yeah, you should put a link up to that.
The other thing I like about this is it's really one of Bowie's most consistent albums to date. He had this tendency on a lot of his work up to this point where there'd be a couple of phenomenal tracks, and then the rest of it was kind of, I don't really know what he's trying to do here. This is really, really good from start to finish.
Yeah, and there was some really, really solid playing on the album, too. Fuck, man.
Mark Ronson.
Mick Ronson.
Mick Ronson, thank you.
Yeah, Mick Ronson's guitar, fuck. I loved that tone that he had. Just the riff for Ziggy Stardust and the Spider, that was just, you're like, yeah, it grabs.
Yeah.
Killer riff.
But consistency aside, on the flip side of this, there are still low points on this album. In particular, I noted Hang On to Yourself, which kind of, this is sort of, you're in the era of punk music starting to ascend, and it seemed like kind of a blatant attempt to try to appeal to punk fans, honestly, and it doesn't really work so well. But again, I'm quibbling. I'm looking for the negatives because I'm trying to be fair here. On the whole, again, very consistent.
To be fair, too, that song, it's like, well, back then when the album was released, maybe it was stronger.
That's true.
But hearing it now, it probably hasn't aged well. A lot of early punk hasn't aged very well, to be honest.
No, that is very true.
So
that's a very good point.
The other thing I'll say is Bowie became really good at creating characters. He was not such a great storyteller. This album kind of like starts on this bold, oh my God, there's this impending disaster. We've only got 5 years left and the world's going to end. And then you get a few more tracks into the album. It's like, well, okay, well, what happened with all of that? Because it just sort of disappeared. It's like he came up with a concept and then just started writing songs and kind of forgot that he was working on a concept.
Yeah. That happened with Frank and the Oboist too, yeah.
Everything comes back to Frank the Oboist.
It really does. It really does.
Yes, I think they really did just set the tone for a lot of other bands and concept albums as a whole.
Absolutely true.
Yes. Okay, let's move on to Let It Bleed.
What a great album.
What a great opener. The Gimme Shelter is such a phenomenal song, and that guitar intro to that is just, within 10 seconds you're hearing something you've never heard before.
And the vocals on Gimme Shelter, the backups.
Especially the backup vocals.
Mary Clayton, that they woke up in the middle of the night. She's pregnant. She's not going to take the call, but her husband goes, "It's the Rolling Stones. You should probably take this call." And sadly, she miscarried after this and could never listen to this song again. But her vocal in that center is unbelievable.
Yeah.
I mean, as far as like vocals in the center of a song, like with a woman just singing like that, we're going to come back to this later in the show with another album I'm not going to say right now, but with that same kind of vocal range and feeling. The emotion with it was amazing.
Upstaging Mick Jagger is hard to do, and yet I think she pulled it off.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it happened. Because, wow.
Yes. The big sound of this album, of all of the instruments, Glenn Johns, the engineer here, I just read his book, by the way. This was the same year he did Led Zeppelin 1. And we know what that album sounds like. The huge drums, the huge guitar. I mean, it's as close as you were going to get to hear a band live. And I really think he encapsulated the Rolling Stones here to give you a feel of what this band sounds like live. And it's how this band should be heard. I don't like them in stadiums. They should be playing small venues, smaller clubs.
Ideally, they're a bar band. Yeah.
Yes, and I would, I always wish I could find out where they go and they just do those one-off rehearsal gigs.
Oh man,
where they play a bar. Can you imagine?
Right, that would be so much cooler.
Oh.
When you said that he captured that Glenn Johns captured the Stones, I agree with that, first of all, but this is also the album where the Stones really kind of became the Stones that you know. This is the album where they stop being a little British invasion band that's living in the shadow of the Beatles, and they get away from this absolutely horrific idea that they had to make a psychedelic album right before this one.
Even Keith Richards calls that a piece of shit.
Yeah, it is. And
it really is.
And so this is where they suddenly embrace this like blues rock, country blues rock that becomes their defining sound for the next 25 years and beyond, frankly.
Yes. Okay, so let's take some shots at it.
Yeah. So first of all, I am long of the belief, as much as I love Mick Jagger's voice for certain songs, I am long of the belief that Mick Jagger should never, ever sing ballads. His voice is just not made to deliver a ballad effectively.
You didn't like Angie, huh?
No, I didn't. Angie.
Okay.
No.
Or Wild Horses.
You know,
Wild Horses.
I have to disagree with you all. When they're more bluesy, when the slower songs are more bluesy, Mick nails it.
I think so too.
When they're more of
think so too.
When they're more of like a slow ballad, you're right. They
No,
don't work.
As a ballad, yeah.
But a slow blues song, no, he's got that.
Oh yeah. No, a slow blues song I'm not arguing with. I'm talking specifically ballad.
Yes.
He does not have an emotional voice.
That one song, was it Cocksucker Blues? Not on this album.
Is it?
It's on Beggar's Banquet, I think. No.
Okay.
Maybe I'm wrong. Hell, I don't know. Anyway. I know
this. I know what you're
Blues.
talking. I don't recall where it's from.
I just wanted to say Cocksucker Blues because it's a song and therefore I can say it. So
okay. So
there's also a couple of like low points on this album. So I recall when we had the conversation about the Stones that they were another one of these bands, kind of similar to what we just said to Bowie. They were another one of these bands where you'd have 2 or 3 great tracks and then some downtime on the album. And so one of the ones on here, Country Honk, which is this country western version of Honky Tonk Women, which apparently is more in line with what they originally envisioned when they wrote the song. But anyway, it is not clear to me what purpose this serves or why they thought it would be a good idea. Plus, the quality is just horrible. It sounds like somebody like set up a mic at a backyard barbecue and they just all were just jamming along. So anyway, yeah, this whole Country Honk thing, I don't know why they did it.
I agree. Yeah, they had this thing for country. Yeah. Weird.
Yeah.
But it goes back to their roots of American rock and roll. You know, the Rolling Stones, and we said this before, reintroduced America to our own music.
Oh, they did. They did in a lot of ways. They did. Absolutely. Between them and Elvis.
All right. I think we're good. It's time to vote. Dave, you're up first on this one.
This is a tough one, but I think on the whole that top to bottom consistency is just better on Ziggy Stardust, and so I got to go with Bowie.
Okay. Scott?
I'm going to go with Ziggy as well.
That clinches it.
Okay.
He said clinch.
I was going to take the Stones, so 2-1.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
On to the middle part.
The middle part.
We're going to take a little break now from some of these matchups and talk about something that's going on in the music scene recently. And recently, Scott pointed us to an article we are keen. Kiss's Gene Simmons has declared that rock and roll is dead and that it was killed by the fans. So let's kick that around. So this was his statement. Fans killed the thing they loved by downloading and file sharing for free. How do you expect somebody who loves the guitar to come out into this creative process? You've got to invent yourself, and so rock is dead. All right,
okay.
Let's discuss this. Do we agree or disagree?
I have some thoughts on that. First of all, Gene is what, 94? Okay, give or take 30 years.
Maybe
I
20.
think
No, he's pushing 80.
I think maybe 70, but his cock is definitely
like
94
70.
at this point.
He's like pushing 80, and he's saying this whole thing that he says. Fans killed the things they love by downloading and file sharing for free. Oh my God! Wait! How do you expect somebody who loves a guitar to come into this creative process? That's a completely disjointed thought. You got to reinvent yourself. So is that, and so rock is dead. And it's like, whoa, dude, you're making some huge fucking leaps here. Okay,
that is the slippery slope fallacy right there.
It really is. It's like, okay, I can't explain it, so God did it. Yeah, okay, right. You know,
I think everybody having access to music probably, I can't tell you how many times you go and look up a song that you want to hear on YouTube, and there's like at least 5 or 6 other videos of some younger kids doing covers on it, on their guitars, on their bass guitars.
Easily.
In fact, I would say rock got a big reboot thanks to the rock guitar or whatever the game was that came out by
Guitar Hero.
Thank you, Guitar Hero.
Oh yeah,
and everyone all of a sudden got introduced to. I mean, these kids didn't know who the fuck Foghat was, and next thing you know, they're fucking jamming out the slow ride on Guitar Hero.
Exactly.
Corey, to your point about these kids like making videos on YouTube, here's my argument for why rock is not dead. Nandy Bushnell.
Yes.
Right.
So
yes.
Last year, maybe it was the year before, maybe I'm misremembering.
It was in 2020. You got to go.
Nandy Bushnell, 10 years old at the time, sits down at a drum kit and masters the drum line, but Dave Grohl's from Foo Fighters Everlong, which just that by itself, there are 30-year-old drummers that can't play like Dave Grohl. For a 10-year-old kid to sit down and master it is phenomenal.
Right.
Dave Grohl gets wind of this. They start going back and forth and sharing videos back and forth. This video gets 6 million views. I mean, and it gets so many views that eventually Grohl plays a concert and brings Nandy Bushnell out to play on stage with the Foo Fighters during a live appearance. Clearly, this concept that kids aren't getting expired to get into music is clearly erroneous.
It's
That's your
complete
best evidence.
bullshit. It's
That is
complete
garbage,
bullshit.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's-
and I think Gene tips his hand a little bit with this quote. Fans killed the things they love by downloading and file sharing for free. Okay, first of all,
For
you're
free.
gonna tell me that file sharing hasn't affected genres other than rock. Bullshit. But I'm all for the idea that artists should get paid for what they do. But Gene Simmons has always been a guy who has looked at his music career through the lens of how much money he can make. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
Kiss was always about what can we slap our name on and sell to people because I want to
Yes.
make as much
Yes.
money as possible. And so I think at the heart of this is not so much that rock is dead, as Gene puts it, but that probably Gene's tax returns for the last couple of years haven't showed quite as big of income statement as he has in prior years.
Right. Because no one's buying those Kiss lunch boxes anymore, or those
Right.
Kiss condoms, or those Kiss douches.
And in Gene
or
Simmons,
the,
Kiss
Yeah.
douches. and in Gene, I mean, this is. I mean, I'm laughing at that, Scott, but I mean, this is the band that once sold a casket with their logo on it that you could be.
I
buried.
know. That's what I mean. They, hey,
Talk
who
about
knows?
marketing. You
Right.
know? I mean, I think he's just, you know what? Gene Simmons is jealous of fucking Kanye.
He really is. He really is. He was like, God damn it, I came up with that originally, not Kanye.
He's going, why didn't we make Kiss shoes or Kiss
Yeah,
jackets?
right?
Oh,
You know?
Yeah,
they
'cause,
did,
man-
by the way. They
They
did.
probably did.
You
Yeah.
can get trust me, as somebody like who once went as Gene Simmons for a costume party a few years back. You can buy officially licensed Kiss costume pieces to go
Wow.
on and so like the big platform shoes with the teeth on them and everything,
Okay.
Yeah.
and they ain't cheap, of course, because Gene's got to make a buck.
To go back to the music part, though, if it had not been for downloading and file sharing back when, what was it? Napster and
Late 90s, early
LimeWire
aughts.
and shit like that. Had it not been for those things, I personally would not have heard a lot of music. So
Agreed.
Yeah.
I would often hear that music through a single that I downloaded illegally, and then go out and I would buy the album. And
True. It becomes an entree to actually go out
right.
and buy something that you wouldn't have bought otherwise.
Because otherwise, I would never. It's like I don't really want to, because you couldn't just go to stores so much as often back then and hear an album the way you didn't get previews, is what I'm saying.
Right.
So you
can't depend on the radio
right? Oh fuck no.
for new material.
Radio's
And,
garbage.
You I mean, there's so many different avenues and places that you can go out there to try to find new music, but there's too many.
Yeah.
There's too many, and you're going to come to some that are, they're going to be so tailored to what you like, you're never going to hear anything new. Because they're just always going to play something that's in your genre. You're not going to, I think that's the one thing I've really liked about doing this podcast is that I've had to step out of my comfort zone a few times. And I've had to listen to stuff that I wouldn't have listened to otherwise. And I've come away going, you know what? I liked it. Let's see what else they got out there. Or didn't like it. Let's move on. But there's somebody else out there that does exactly what doing that does it better. And I like them.
But then you can go back and you can hear that when somebody else says, "Hey, I really like this," and you'll be like, "Yeah, I've heard that." And so you have a reference for what they're talking about at least. And it's like Gene Simmons later said about BTS, that they're not inspiring. No one goes into their garage to become a BTS cover band or whatever. They didn't get inspired to play guitar because of BTS. It's like, well, totally different genre of music there, Gene. And no one's going out to their garage and forming a One Direction cover band either.
I will say this. Go on, Dave.
Well, no, I was just going to say that people have been hand-wringing over this question for a very long time. Disco is killing rock. Rap and hip-hop are killing rock. Synth-pop is killing rock. Top 40 radio is killing rock. It's always been an overreaction. Rock music, like any other genre, has had high points and low points. I will readily admit that it is a little less popular at the moment than it has been in the past.
Sure.
But is it dead? Is rock in 2022 dead? Ask the Foo Fighters. Ask Arctic Monkeys. Ask Manskin. Ask Disturbed. Ask the Black Keys whether rock is dead. These are all acts that have had huge rock careers in the last 10 years.
Oh, yeah.
Foo Fighters were still selling out stadiums.
Ask Iron Maiden, who is still going very strong.
Yes.
Yeah, but my point is, if his argument is kids aren't picking up the guitar anymore, again, Arctic, and Scott, I know you're not a huge fan, but Arctic Monkeys is absolutely a rock act that has come into being in the last 20 years. Black Keys, Royal Blood. I mean, there's a lot of acts that there are people that are picking up for the first time.
You're absolutely right.
Okay, I think in conclusion, Gene Simmons is full of shit.
Yeah, I think we're in agreement.
Grandpa Gene,
that's also
it's
nothing
time
new.
It's time for you to go to the home.
Indeed.
All right, I think we can wrap it up there. Okay, so Dave, let's take us into the next matchup.
All right, so widely considered to be the world's first concept album, In the Wee Small Hours pulls together 2 discs worth of reflective, wistful songs of heartbreak and regret, all delivered by an aging Frank Sinatra who was struggling with both a failed marriage and a seemingly failing career. Meanwhile, you take one blues guitar phenom, blend with a lead singer equally capable of easy ballads and room-shaking screams, starring one of the greatest drummers to ever live, and you end up with the debut of Led Zeppelin, who went on to become one of the biggest rock gods of the 1970s. We explored Sinatra more in depth back on Season 1, Episode 3 of the podcast, and Zeppelin back on Season 1, Episode 5.
Okay, so Led Zeppelin 1, I just mentioned, Glenn Johns being the engineer. The sound that he got out of this band was absolutely amazing. John Paul Jones, prior to joining this band, was one of his go-to bass players for other studio albums. Just because he was always solid, he just had a great sound and could basically fit in with anyone. But as far as a breakout album, this is, I mean, we talk about some bands like their first album, you're like, yeah, you can kind of see where they're going. But with this, they punched you right from the beginning.
Yeah, they
dropped the needle, and you're like, whoa, what just happened?
Yeah, when you hear Lemon's song, you're like, what?
Yeah, this is the album that invented heavy metal. It kind of like we just said with Gimme Shelter. It's one of those, the second you hear the first couple of notes, you realize you're in for something different that hadn't been on the scene before.
Oh, yeah.
And it doesn't hurt that every single member of this band was pretty much at the top of their game. I mean, you got Jimmy Page, John Bonham, Robert Plant. You've pulled together a bunch of guys who are as good as it gets for what they do. And amazingly enough, they really work as an ensemble. Like, there's not really a point where one of them really overshadows the others. There's a lot of give and take in the performance.
There was always a lot of give or take. I think John Paul Jones got a lot of, he was understated a lot, is what I mean to say. But he was so integral to that sound being that sound. Because without him, it would have been like removing Bonham. You can't do it, and it had to be Bonham.
Well, Bonham kind of removed himself, but yeah.
Well, yeah, exactly. A little vomit will do that. Oh.
Yes. All right, we can laud all about it. All right, let's take our shots at it now.
Yeah. So, first of all, my first comment was, we just talked about Liz Phair sometimes had a little bit of lack of reining herself in. Some of these songs kind of go on and on and on. There's some tracks that are several minutes long that if they'd exercised a little bit of self-editing and made them a little shorter and tighter, could arguably have been improved. This is not, just to be clear here, this is not about criticizing the album. It's a great album, but we're trying to be fair and really look at everything. That's one of my comments.
This is one of those things where I go back to what we talked about with the Allman Brothers. Some of these blues songs, when they drag out, it works better when it's live than it doesn't in the studio.
Well, that was it, because they were used to playing live at that point.
True.
And it was easy for Jimmy to get carried away, as it were. And he did. Those things went on way too fucking long.
Yeah.
There's only so much of 10-minute guitar solos one can really take. Noodling is fucking noodling, and
it's the same guitar player, unlike the Allmans, that it was at least a couple.
Right, exactly. And then you had dueling noodles, and it was like, okay.
Page has also been criticized for both his songwriting and sometimes his production, which is funny to me. So this is. The odd thing is, everybody knows we're starting with Rolling Stone's top 500 list. This is what Rolling Stone had to say in their review when this album first came out. Jimmy Page, around whom the Zeppelin revolves, is admittedly an extraordinarily proficient blues guitarist and explorer of his instrument's electronic capabilities. Unfortunately, he is also a very limited producer and a writer of weak, unimaginative songs, and the Zeppelin album suffers from his having both produced it and written most of it alone or in combination with his accomplices in the group.
Wow, that's a little harsh.
That's only one paragraph. The guy who wrote this review did not like this album at all.
Damn. Okay.
And I will say this: they did get better with time. This is not the best Zeppelin album. This is a first album by a really good band that only got better and better with each subsequent album they released.
When a lot of people talk about Zeppelin, they hardly ever reference Zeppelin 1.
Yeah,
maybe 2, often 3, mostly 4. But you know how it is.
Yeah, but this is one that should not be ignored because
no.
This is the one they came out and punched the world and went, here we are.
This was the shape of things to come.
Yes.
And it showed exactly what they were going to do, and they did. So
okay. So, Frank.
Yeah.
Pork I'm almost afraid to let Scott talk for the next 3 minutes.
I mean, Frank was a perfectionist. He was an amazing singer, amazing crooner. This is a guy that would go in and make sure every single note and nuance was captured in his voice, in the words he was delivering, in the songs he delivered. They were almost like personal letters to a specific person whenever he sang a song. Yeah. And that's what made him the true artist. Now, these were not his songs. He did not write them, but he made them his own.
He made them his own because they're all sad songs. First of all, I said during the intro, this is widely considered to be the first concept album in the sense that everything had a central theme. And in this case, it's all sort of dark, depressing, heartbreak, emotional. And Frank was able to take those songs and make them his own primarily because he was like channeling a lot of his own struggles with depression. I mean, by this point, he was, according to at least one writer, he'd already attempted suicide more than once at this point. So it's that really imbued this performance with a lot of honesty, I think.
They were in the studio and they were like, "Go, Frank, go, kill yourself, go!" And he was like, No, I'm not going to kill myself. No, I'm going to sing about it. Anyway.
I don't think we could really say any. I think what we've just covered is both positive and negative
at the same time. Wow.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes. This is 1950. This is The Cure, 1951.
Right. Yeah. I'm so lonely. Will you be my friend?
And quite honestly, when you think of Frank Sinatra, this is not the era or the album or the songs you think of. I'm basing this on us.
It's true.
Our generation and growing up, and even with not my parents, but my grandparents that played Frank Sinatra. This wasn't one that was in the mix.
Wasn't on heavy rotation in the Chase household. No. Okay. So let's get straight to the voting.
Oh my God! I actually forgot we had to vote.
Yeah, I go first. Zeppelin. Dave.
I know when we talked about Sinatra originally, I was like one of the few kind of coming to the rescue and defending him. But I think on the whole, I got to go with Zeppelin too.
Yeah.
Scott?
Oh, no, it's Zeppelin.
Okay.
As much as I appreciated Frank's deft use of pork products and his astounding choices, his astounding choices in leatherware. I mean, yeah, but still. He was avant-garde, I'll give him that.
Hey everybody, this is Dave, and I just want to take a quick minute to thank you all for listening. We have a lot of fun making this show for you, and we hope you're enjoying what you hear. And if you are enjoying the show, why not take a minute to subscribe? All you have to do is just search for Musical Shenanigans on your favorite podcast app. We're on all of them, like iHeartRadio, Amazon, Apple, Spotify. Once you find us, you just tap that little subscribe button. You never ever have to worry about missing an episode again. It'll be right there on your phone when it comes out. Also, we'd love it if you tell your friends about us. In fact, if you're with a friend right now, next time they get up to leave the room, just grab their phone and subscribe them as well. I'm sure they'll thank you for it. And as always, we always love your feedback. You can always drop us a review on your favorite podcast platform, or you can tweet at us at @m_shenanigan. Please let us know what you think. We'd love to hear it. All right, that's enough shameless plugging. Again, thank you for listening, and now back to the show.
All right, Dave, let's introduce us to the next matchup.
All right, matchup number 4. So Dig Me Out was the breakthrough album for Seattle's Sleater Kinney. Rockier than its predecessor, Call the Doctor, Dig Me Out deals with issues of sexism, gender roles, heartbreak, and survival, not the least of which growing out of the end of the romantic relationship between lead singer Corin Tucker and guitarist Carrie Brownstein. Meanwhile, following the success of 2005's Late Registration, Kanye West's Graduation attempted to mix rap with rock and pop dynamics, drawing on simplified lyrics, diverse samples, and guest artist cameos, all intentionally designed to appeal to large crowds. You can hear our extended thoughts on these albums by going back to Season 1, Episode 4 for Graduation, or Season 1, Episode 2 for Sleater Kinney.
I think we can go right to the vote.
Oh, well, I'm just going to say it.
We probably can, but let's be fair here.
Let's talk about them.
We'll start with Sleater Kinney. Dave, you could kick us off.
Yeah, so Sleater Kinney. Okay, so I will tell you, I mean, look, it's Kanye. Everybody knows where we're going to land on this. But let me tell you, I have a hard time with the Sleater Kinney album. I had a hard time when we first talked about it. I had a hard time listening to it again. It is solid. The musicianship is great. The guitar work is fantastic. Carrie Brownstein is fantastic on guitar. Yeah. Actually, some of it might be Corin. Corin also plays guitar. It's weird. They're a power trio with no bass player. It's just 2 guitars and a drummer. So I don't necessarily know whose guitar I'm hearing at any given moment, but the two complement each other very well. And then, of course, Janet Weiss. No, we're not going to do the Rocky Horror thing. Okay. No. So Janet Weiss, this is her first album on.
Damn it, you silent slut! What? Oh,
this is the first Sleater Kinney album where she joins as drummer. She was their longest serving drummer. They went through a few of them. And man, she just changed the sound. The drumming on this album is great too. So I love the musicianship. It's just, I said it then, I'll say it now. It's Corin Tucker's voice I cannot get over. I know it's a stylistic choice. I know what she's trying to do. I'd rather fucking eat Brussels sprouts at Scott's house than listen to that again, though.
You eat my Brussels sprouts once, you'll be coming back for more, bitch.
It's just the delivery system that I think he's referring to. Anyway,
yeah, it's the crock pot is the problem.
Ew. No, it's always sauté, man. Always.
I pretty much agree with everything you just said, Dave. You nailed it. The music, it all works. It's those vocals that they are an acquired taste.
You know, I kind of like the vocals, though.
Do you?
Yeah.
I was trying to give her the benefit
screechy
of the doubt. I was thinking, well, okay, can I characterize this as like she's basically being a Johnny Rotten right now? Or,
yeah.
I tried to give as much doubt as I could. I still could not get past it.
There's that screechiness, that off key, the weird pitch shifts, and it's just like
the vibrato. Man, she loves her vibrato.
Yeah. Some people, they just live in there, and she's clearly got a groove. So it's like, all right, yeah, I liked it. So,
and then the other thing, real quick, the other plus of this album, and this is kind of along the same lines as Liz Phair that we talked about earlier. This is another strong album pushing feminist themes, pushing back in particular on gender roles and society's expectations for men versus women. I like that. I think that's great. Again, I like the whole album. It's just I wish Corin Tucker would shut the fuck up and maybe let Carrie sing or something.
She needs to gag on my... Oh, anyway.
Okay.
Another feminist album that ends with...
All right.
By the way, I'm also not sure how I feel about the lack of a bass. I felt like some of the sound is a little bit thin because they don't have a low end on that bass. But
I actually agree with you there.
I absolutely agree with that. Okay, Kanye, Graduation. Hold on. Let's try to find something positive here.
Why?
He's an innovative producer.
Is he?
He brings in different sounds and samples, and
does he?
Sometimes they work. He does collaborate with other artists, and rappers and has brought them up. Now, of course, he'll always say they're not better than him, but he does introduce new artists that I think gravitate, learn from whatever they can, glean from him, and then move on.
He's like a Black Donald Trump. It's all about him.
You know what?
Oh God, yeah. Of course.
Yeah.
But now let's be careful here, because this comes back to, we're focused on the album here, not the fact that he is personally a douchebag
and crazy.
Those are the only nice things I could say. I mean, his rapping, it's weak. I mean, when I went through the list, who was I talking about that day? Nas. Okay, when I went through all the top rappers, Kanye doesn't even crack the top 25.
Yeah.
95% of the time. I mean, when you listen to this album, he is a mediocre.
Mediocre.
He's a mediocre
Corey strikes
pop
again.
Star with a hip hop
mediocre.
sound.
He's very mediocre.
What the hell?
Well, it's like yesterday I heard, day before anyway, I heard Gin and Juice, with Snoop. And I was like, fuck yeah. And just hearing that, it's like Snoop just killed anything Kanye ever fucking did. Just absolutely destroyed him.
Snoop's amazing.
Yeah, he is. And it reminded me of how good that track was. And then this trash had to come up.
I think,
and honestly, my nether regions that I won't speak about clenched.
I think I actually, all right, I'm going to say this is I'm going to talk out of both sides of my mouth here for a second, but I actually think Kanye does some interesting things when it comes to sampling and producing beats. I just wish he'd shut the fuck up. Like it's the problem. Honestly, musically, there's nothing wrong with this album. It's Kanye trying to rap that's the problem. And I will say, that being said, a lot of what Corey, actually your comment about him not being in any recognized list of top 25 rappers, I will say I even went reading people who love Kanye online, and this is generally considered to be one of his weakest albums, even by the people who love Kanye.
Wow.
So are the people that love Kanye like the Kanye heads or the Kanyoids or the Yees or the Yesosians
Yeas,
or Yevoians? I don't know what you call them.
Kanye nuts?
Kanye nuts.
Kanye
nuts.
Kanye nuts.
Kanye nuts. Yeah. I got you nuts. Yeah.
But yeah, he is not a rapper. He really should just step back into the studio and produce for other people. The lyrics, his lyrics are god awful. You got a lot of first of all, you got a lot of the stuff that just doesn't even slant rhymes and things that don't even work. But the one that I climbed onto was one of these songs, and I forget which one it is. And by the way, anybody listening to this, don't write in and remind me because I don't care. But there was one track that. There was one track where the line was, "Hey, Mona Lisa, come home. You know you can't travel without Caesar." What the fuck does that even mean?
Does she take her own? Maybe she takes her own Caesar salad dressing wherever she goes.
Just to contextualize this. So Caesar died in 44 BC. Mona Lisa was painted in 1503. So let me carry the one. Yeah, 1,600 fucking years.
Yeah, so, hey, but, Mona Lisa could be a reference to an Italian girl. Hey, Italian girl, come home. You can't travel without Caesar. In other words, hey, you need some Caesar salad dressing. You need to come home.
Hold on. They're both from Italy.
Right, there you go.
They are. Caesar salad Italy. Is not, actually, but yeah.
Well,
yes, but...
It's Kanye, all right? Damn it. Give the poor guy a break.
He was sitting in an Italian restaurant. This is what happened. He got his Caesar salad before he got his spaghetti dinner, and there's a fake Mona Lisa on the wall, and he was inspired.
And he was like, hey, I gotta clench my buttocks.
And there we have it. Okay. Time to vote. Scott.
Yes. Dig me out.
Dave?
Corin Tucker is really fucking lucky that this is the album she has to compete with.
You are kidding. You know what? Just in good faith, I'm going to choose Sleater Kinney.
Oh, good, because I'd have to come down there and whack you.
Okay, so that gets us through the first 4 albums.
Oh,
All right.
thank God. Okay.
Post-production Corey here. That was 4 rounds, not 4 albums. But to further explain what's happening here, I'm going to let Scott... Yeah, go ahead, dude.
We're real sorry that this is taking so long. And yeah, I know. I see you looking at your watch there. It's cool. Hey, look, you probably spend more time watching porn, and I get it. It's cool. But, sometimes time just slips by, and you slip into an alternate reality as you're listening to your 3 favorite podcasters, and
That's us.
things happen.
I know, but we're running out of
breaks.
time. Scott,
Knob breaks.
where are you going with this?
The ocean explodes.
Stop.
There's a chicken flying off to the east. Who knew?
No. Will you just do them a to be continued? Yes, we recorded this. It's too long, so do it like they did on TV.
Imagine, if you will, a California ocean, a water ski jump, a
Oh, no.
buoyed off section, a carnivorous shark circling within the buoys,
Oh, God.
and the brave water skier ready to make the jump of a lifetime.
He did it.
So come back next time for the next 4 rounds with your hosts, me and those other 2 assholes.
Us. Good job.
That's the last time you let me do this, ain't it?
Yeah. Now that you're saying that we're going to jump the shark now. Thanks, dude. See y'all next time. Part 2, 4 more rounds.